Hi, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, the Too Opinionated podcast could really use your help. And it's easy, it's free. IMDb, which is the entertainment database, imdb.com, named us a top 100 podcast. We came in at number 82. That's a big deal because there's 15 million podcasts and growing. So to be named to anybody's top 100 list, pretty big deal for us. And the way you can help is to go to imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated podcast, and that's it. Just bringing our page up. That traffic really helps us out. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. All we ask is that you subscribe. It's also free, but that really helps us to attract these amazing guests that we keep bringing on the program. And that's it. Two easy ways for you to support us, and we would really appreciate the help. Now let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I've got actress Liz Vassey with me. So welcome, Liz.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. I warned you, I had an allergy attack, so my voice is very low. I should be doing voiceovers and playing villains like we talked
I
about.
told you, yeah, we've got villain Liz with
Yeah,
us
exactly.
today.
Exactly. I could play villains whenever it's raining outside or there are changes in barometric pressure. I'm gonna put that on my resume. I think it'll
You need to try singing some songs that you normally can't hit the range and see
oh
if
yeah, I should go like all Rosemary Clooney, she did all that sort of baritone stuff. Hey, the husband loves it. I think he's like, oh, good, it's raining. She gets to sound like herself.
I get that. I get
Yeah,
it's just nice having a little difference once in a while.
yeah, sure, why not?
Why not? So speaking of Clooney, we were talking off camera. How about that segue?
That was pretty good. That was
Pretty
smooth.
good. We were
That
talking
was
off camera
seamless.
about your time on ER,
Yeah.
in conjunction with Friends starting up. So let's revisit that because I need to hear the end of the story.
Let's
So you
see.
were on
So,
ER. Friends starts up. Your
well, I was on ER. I had shot another pilot for a show called Pigsty, and in the meantime, I got what was supposed to be a guest spot on this show called ER, and nobody knew what it was. All I knew was I went to the audition and I made the casting director blush because it was this whole scene about your fingers are long and strong, you're bandaging my legs, and the whole thing was based on a woman in Michael Crichton's life who came on to all the doctors at the hospital.
Sweet.
She'd come in with different skin maladies and different conditions, and she would then throw herself at all the doctors. So I was basically girl in the pilot, which they later named me Liz when I came back. I was like, oh, awesome. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thanks for that.
But I went to shoot the pilot after the day. This is so it's very fortunate to be able to say this, but I shot the pilot for Pigsty, and then I went the next morning after about 4 hours sleep to go shoot the pilot for ER. So I'm shooting the whole pilot. I have a great day. I'm working with this wonderful, wonderful man who later I'm literally I'm 21 at the time, so keep that in mind. But I'm walking to my car afterwards. I was like, God, that was so fun. Oh my God, that was Goose from Top Gun. Like I had no idea I had just worked with Goose from Top Gun, which was probably great. I mean, I've always said there's no better way to go into a job than being a little tired, a little hungry, and just a little clueless because your head doesn't talk to you. You're just sort of in the moment. But I had a great time. So they asked me to come back, and then they hooked me up with Noah Wiley's character, and I came in. I think I gave him crabs. Actually, I think I slept with him and gave him crabs on the show. And so at the time, no, we're shooting in Warner Brothers, and the show called Friends was starting to shoot next door, and neither had aired. And I had known David Schwimmer from a pilot a couple years prior, and just thought he was the greatest. Which
Yeah.
I mean, he was such a lovely, lovely man. And so he introduced me to a couple other cast members, and this is so long ago that people were smoking, so there would be smoke breaks outside, and you just sit outside, and it would be like, oh, there's Matthew Perry coming in. Oh, George Clooney's playing basketball. And my dearest friend, who's been my dearest friend since I was 9, came out to visit me, and she just sat there with me. Like, she visited for 2 weeks, and we just sit out there and we would do, I remember specifically doing a Grease 2 dance with Noah Wiley. George Clooney, like I said, was playing basketball, and Matt Perry was just, I mean, he's hysterical. It was hysterical. He was just always cracking jokes, and it was like this really wonderful moment because nobody knew what was coming. And Schwimmer, I remember very specifically, said to me, "I want to buy a house, but I don't know if the show's going to go very long," which is like, I mean, I get chills even thinking about that. He became like a television version of a Beatle, but he just didn't know. Who knew, you know? So it was
Well,
just
that's
this,
right.
it was really amazing to look back and then see that both just became juggernauts. I was so happy to be a part of one of them,
I
you
know
know?
what a great way to kind of start out your career. I mean, that was pretty early on, and you're hanging with people that are going to become superstars. They just didn't know it yet.
Well, yeah. I mean, I started theater when I was 9, but I started in TV when I was 16, and it was on a soap. So I hadn't done a lot of prime time. I got off the soap when I was 18 or 19 and moved out here. Um,
Is that
but
All
I,
My Children, maybe?
yeah, it was only
Yeah.
children. But
My
I
mother
remember,
was a soap fan, so I remember the TV just being on.
dude, people love those things. They love them. I'd never watched one before, but I mean, I learned. But yeah, Clooney was really interesting. Like I mean, I'm not pretending like I know him really well. I did like 4 episodes of the show, but my part was really fun and I had a great time doing it. And he was kind enough to take me aside one day and say to me at 21 years old, he'd probably be like, "Who the hell are you? And why do you remember this?" But it made a very big impression. He said, "You will be lightning in a bottle. We all are lightning in a bottle. People will love you for a day, a week, a month. Then you will be cold and you won't be able to work. And then they're going to love you again." And he goes, "It never has anything to do with you. You are talented. You should be working. And, you just have to have that faith in yourself, regardless of
Yeah.
what the business is telling you," which, ultimately, like, why the hell did he take time out
That's
to say
great
that?
advice.
It's great advice.
Well,
Like, if I
people forget. I mean, he was working, he was on Roseanne for a long time before
was
he.
on Facts of Life.
Oh, Facts of Life. Yeah. Yeah. So he'd been working for a while by that
Yeah.
time.
So, if I ever am in Lake Como and I see him, I will be sure and thank him. But because I really appreciated that. And it actually meant something in the years that followed. It really,
Yeah.
it stuck.
That's a great ER/friend story.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Pretty good. That's pretty good. I've got two friends adjacent stories.
Okay.
They're both quick. So I'll give these are my friend stories. So good friend of mine was the runner up to Jennifer Aniston for Rachel. So she went through. She got through all the auditions, and they brought the two of them in and had them sign the contracts. But
The
they
network.
hadn't chosen one of them, and then they chose Jennifer with that. And of course, she at the time didn't even know what she was missing out on. But later, she was like,
Well, my ex-boyfriend actually tested for Chandler and for Joey.
"Oh
And
wow,
same thing, like those network tests are really bizarre
yeah,
because for people that don't know, you go in and you're reading for the heads of the network. It's down to maybe 3 or 4 of you for a part,
yeah,
sometimes two, but you do sign your contract. So they can't ostensibly fall in love with you in the room and then have you go, "I would like $14 million an
right,
episode." So they set the contract before you go in. So the mind trick is you know exactly how much money you stand to make or lose depending on how that network test goes. They're horrific. I mean, they're awful. Well, now they don't do them live so much anymore. They do them
right."
on tape, which I think is a much more genteel
That's
way to do
better, yeah,
it.
yeah, because
Yeah,
that's brutal, and that's it. Like now she could watch Friends and she's fine, but it took her years where she couldn't even watch it.
I don't blame her. That's really, I don't have one of those. Like I don't, I read for Monica on that show like everybody did, but I'm a couple years younger than the friends, like just a skosh. And so I skewed too young and I mean, like I had one read and that was it. And
Yeah.
I'm sort of happy because I don't want to get that close to
No, it'd be brutal. So okay, so here's the funnier story. So my wife works with or used to work with David Schwimmer's sister with that.
Okay.
So his sister's a lawyer, and my wife works for Live Nation, so they worked together for a while. Well, she told me about that. She went to L.A. She came back. She told me she's working with Ellie Schwimmer, and I was like, "Oh, is she related to David Schwimmer?" I was like, "It's Hollywood. Everybody seems to be related to somebody." She's like, "No, no, they're not related." I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, and the name kept coming up, and every time I'd ask her, "Are you sure she's not?" And she's no.
That's
They're
funny.
not related. Well, so at some point she got invited out to Ellie's house. So she calls me when she gets there and she says, "There's pictures of David Schwimmer everywhere." I was
What
like,
if you
"Don't
found out
say."
she's still not related? Like she's just a little screwed in the head. She just has a crazy crush on him. That's
That,
funny.
yeah, it cracked me up. I'm like,
That's funny. Well, yeah, I was added on my first job. Is that true? My first series regular job when I came out here was I was added to a show that nobody saw called Walter and Emily. And
oh, okay.
God, my father on it was Brian Keith. My mother on it was Cloris Leachman.
I mean, that's not terrible.
Chris McDonald played my brother. You know, Thelma, you
Oh,
get your butt back here. He
oh yeah.
played my brother. One of the Lawrence boys, Matthew, was ironically, I don't remember how I was supposed to be related to him. I think he was my nephew. And then Schwimmer was my boyfriend. So I got added onto this show. I had never done a sitcom before. So I
Yeah.
had no idea that like the table reads you have to deliver or they will fire you if you don't like kill every joke. I didn't know about a live audience. I didn't know about, I mean, it was a really
Yeah.
weird experience. And the director was a very cruel man who, interestingly enough, I was reading Henry Winkler's autobiography, and he calls out this director and says he's one of the cruelest people he's ever met in his life. The man has passed away. I will not mention who it is,
Right.
but I did. I wrote to Henry Winkler. I was like, "Oh my God, Fonzie! I totally agree. The guy was terrible." And he was like, "How bad is he? He was so mean." And
Did he write back?
Fonzie,
Yeah.
yes. He did. He was happy. I was like, I feel vindicated. I was 19. I thought I was just being hypersensitive. But I mean, if Henry Winkler,
Funny.
them dude's got to be pretty bad. So it was not a pleasant experience on the show, is what I'm saying. And Schwimmer is the one that made it much better. He was just so kind and so like he helped me through,
I'm
and he
surprised I don't know that show because that's a pretty
don't
darn good cast.
yeah, if you find it, don't watch it. Save yourself some life. It was awful. It was really, really bad. I was very grateful to have it, but it was bad. And then it didn't go beyond the 13 order. I did the last episode of the first 13, and then it never went any
It never
further.
went anywhere. Well, I knew you'd done the episode of Herman's Head because
Yeah.
we've had Jane. Jane's been on the show, so and I always thought Herman's Head was originally I'd watched it for William Ragsdale was
Yeah.
the lead because I was a Fright Night fan.
Yeah, of course.
But then the show I thought it was quirky, it was kind of fun, but it didn't last as long as I thought it should.
No, it didn't until it came back kind of as a Pixar movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same concept. I thought the concept was genius. I loved it. I thought it was great. I had a great time. It was I think it was the first of I think that was my first lesbian. I think that was playing my first
You
lesbian.
always remember your first one.
Yes, I think that was my first. That was my very first.
When you did Parker Lewis Can't Lose, it's like you did all the strange little stuff.
You know, I did. And I also, as a series regular, did all the strange little things, which is why for a long period of my career, it was 6 episodes and gone because they were too friggin' weird. And it's what I just gravitated to that. Like I still stand by Maximum Bob as being one of the best things I've ever worked
Oh, I
on.
love Maximum Bob. It was so Twin Peaky. I still don't know why it didn't make it.
I mean, I can tell you sort of the biggest reason is that it's one of those network things where Barry Sonnenfeld and Barry Josephson, who produced both that and Fantasy Island, they were sort of sold as a group, like a group package to ABC. So ABC was like, we really want this Fantasy Island, but we'll take this other little side show.
Right.
So they took us, they put us on in the summer. And I think had it been later and if there'd been streaming, I think, well, I don't think, I know that that show would have done really well. It's Elmore Leonard. I mean, I'm not saying that because of me. It's just, it's Elmore Leonard. Beau Bridges starred in it. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
it was a
I
show.
loved it. I was a big fan of Maximum Bob. That doesn't surprise me because I think, especially back then, networks they had a lot of shenanigans with shows.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of good shows didn't make it because they just didn't give them a chance.
Yeah, they really didn't. And except for, you know, like you hear that Seinfeld tested basically in the toilet, Cheers tested in the toilet, and you get somebody like I think it was Brandon Tartikoff for both of those, I think, and I could be misspeaking, but I think that's who it was. really pushed. They had a fan who said, let them grow an audience. And I wish somebody had done that with Maximum Bob. I think that and The Tick were the two things I did that were really out there that appealed to me so much artistically. And I started to think, wow, I don't think I have taste that sort of coincides with the general public.
Well, yeah, and the Tick was so quirky, and they didn't give it long enough with that
No,
because it was like if you'd read the comic book, it was very close to the source material. I thought they did a really good. It was goofy, but not to the point that it was just slapstick. It was actually really well written.
yeah, I mean, I saw your interview that you did with Nestor, which was great, by the way. I love
Oh,
Nestor so
thank you.
much.
Me
And
too.
he actually said something about how he thinks we shot 10 episodes. I think we shot 7. I think it was even fewer than he thought. Like it was really, it
Yeah,
took,
it was not a lot.
I can see the mistake because it took 2 years. Like they would be like, let's take a break.
Right.
And okay, and the network bought it. And I felt like they started watching it and network notes start coming in and I felt like that they were sort of going, oh, does he have to be blue? Does he have to be a bug? Does he have to, where does he come from? Can we get some backstory? And Ben Edlund is like, no, this is what you bought.
Yeah, just
You
go
know?
read the comic.
Yeah, seriously. I thought it was great. I thought Ben was great. I still love Ben.
It still holds up. I mean, it's just
I
it. I mean, it's quirky as all get out, but it's if you're a fan, it's awesome.
yeah, the new one was good too, I
Oh, the
thought.
new one was so good. How did that work out that you got to come back as a different character on that one?
Well, it was funny because I'm writing more than I'm acting now. I mean, occasionally I'll do some stuff, but
Yeah.
really focused on writing. And I was on a deadline. I was writing something on a deadline, and trying to think who contacted me first. I think Barry Josephson contacted me first and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming and doing a guest spot on the new Tick?" I was like, "Interested, yes. Available, not really. You're shooting in Brooklyn, and I'm like deep in this rewrite. I don't know that I have the time." He
Yeah.
said, "Let me get Ben to get in touch with you." So Ben sent me a picture of Lobstercules, so I see this lobster in these garbage bag pants, and he writes a little bit of her backstory, and then he's like, all we need you to do is come into a vocal booth and voice this lobster who wants to protect her babies, and you can do it in LA. And I was like, oh no, that's entirely different. Yeah, okay, I'll definitely like that I will make
I'm
work
back
out.
on board.
Yeah, it was so much fun because, I got to see Ben again, which was fun, but also I've never really done that much voiceover work. I mean, now obviously with my voice this low, I'm going to get everything. Like I'm
That's
going to be
right.
selling Cheerios and oatmeal, but I hadn't done much. And so I had never really found that I'd never had that experience of standing in a booth where you're punching something. So you're in the booth going, "Burf, burf," and who knows what a lobster sounds like? Like, I don't know what a 6'5", verbal lobster sounds like. So, I was like, does her voice sound like, like it's got some ocean water in it? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I would think it'd be a little watery.
it was a little watery is what we came up with. So, it was really exciting to do that because it was just so different. And it was like, you feel like you're 10 years old. It was great.
Well, you got to do the dress up thing. I mean, kinda. And then, in the first one, you got the I mean, she's kind of the Wonder Woman Captain America
Yeah.
figure. That's
Yeah.
pretty great.
It was great. I got an action figure out of it, which as a kid, like I'm convinced this is why my husband married me, but I'm a Star Wars freak and I have every Star
Same.
Wars action figure. I have all of the little ones. I have all the big ones. I have the Darth Vader collector case. I got the land speeder. I got everything.
Oh yeah, he chose well then.
Seriously, like I honestly I think the second that was unveiled, I think he was like, I'm gonna lock
Yeah.
this shit.
Yeah.
And so for me to get an action figure, it was just remarkable to have one. Like it was so cool.
I'd love to have an action figure.
It was great. Well, what they do, I mean, I don't know if they do this to everybody or if this was at the time and this is a while ago, but they sent me a prototype. Like they were like, here's what we think she'll look like. Do you have notes? So I'm looking at her and I'm going, with all due respect, like the posterior region is really huge. Like that's not, it doesn't seem at all reflective of my own. Just if it just seems a little off. And the face looks like it's Patrick Warburton's face, but with my hair, it really did. So I sent it
That's not
back.
good.
I was like, listen, I'm just happy to have one, but you're asking for my thoughts. So here are my thoughts. So they sent back a letter and it said, due to your concerns, we are reducing your posterior region and we are altering your face to look less like Patrick Warburton. So I actually have a letter of what they did to my action figure to make it look a little bit more like me,
That's
which I think,
amazing.
yeah, it was really funny. It was really
It's pretty
funny.
great.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
Well, so were you happier with the finished product?
I was happy with the first one. It didn't matter. I just, as a kid, when I would get one that didn't particularly look like the person, I would go, this is a Jip. So I wanted it to look as
That's
much like,
right.
hey, I may only get one in my lifetime. I kind of want it to look like
Well,
me.
yeah, if you collect Star Wars figures, some of those Luke heads and Han heads were tiny, and some of them were fat, and half of them didn't look like them.
I know. And so it was very exciting. And I have the one that I got, a cat knocked off a shelf and her head fell off. And I have her up on a shelf. So there's me in my Captain Liberty outfit, headless, holding her own head. And I always thought it's a great ego check because it's like, oh, you're fancy, but you're not that
You're
fancy.
not that fancy.
No.
I interviewed Sam Jones one time that played Flash Gordon,
Yeah.
and he did the interview just standing up in his living room. He never sat down, but he was just surrounded by boxes just everywhere. And I asked him, I was like, Sam, are you moving? He's like, no, these are just my action figures.
Really?
I mean, he literally just boxes of them.
I
What
wonder
he
if
was doing with them,
he probably takes them to cons, I would think.
I'm
Like,
assuming, yeah, because that's where we had originally met him. He was at a convention. He was trying to watch his son's college baseball game and couldn't get it working. And my son, being a little more technical, was able to get him connected. And I was like, well, if you want to pay us back, we got this podcast.
hey, that's pretty great.
Yeah, it
That's
worked out pretty well.
That's nice. I would imagine he does a lot of those. I've done like four cons in my life. They've been really interesting. But yeah, I'm always curious about those. They're
Once you do a character that is con worthy, you can just show up for the rest of your life.
I know, but nobody ever like I've been asked to do I think four of them. I've never tried to get into them. I've just sort of like seen, it hasn't been like something I've been focused on. But I think they should get the whole group of us. I would think it'd be really fun to get all four of us to go do one.
Yeah,
So yeah, whoever the con people are should contact the four of us and we'd go do one together.
I like
Mostly I
this.
want to see them.
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
I like where this is going. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I'm surprised that they haven't tried to reunite that cast.
well, it wasn't at the time cons weren't that big of a deal. Like I think they wanted to get us to go to Comic-Con when the show first started. And then it was one of those things where it's like, are we canceled? Are we going? Are we canceled?
Right.
I don't think it worked out timing wise, but it also just wasn't like, I mean, now it's a whole culture. I think 20 years ago, it was sort
Oh,
of some,
I can tell you it was different. I owned a couple comic book stores in the '90s, so I did a lot of cons. I was at them all the time, and back then it was only the artists and the writers. There was no Hollywood presence, and it was about 90% male. There was hardly any females that came to it, and now it's grown into this. I mean, it's pretty great now. It's very inclusive. There's all
yeah,
this extra stuff you can do. Yeah, it's so big. I never would have imagined it would have got that big. Just going to the ones from back in the '90s because they were. I mean, they weren't small, but they were not anything like
yes.
what you've got now.
Well, I'm thrilled, and I'm thrilled that it's inclusive because honestly, I grew up in the South, and I got to tell you, being the kid that played the girl that played with action figures and trucks and all of that, and didn't like dolls, like it's not easy sometimes when
Yeah,
So it's kind of great that they're making space for people because I loved comic books growing up. Like I had read The Tick before I got on it. I love that stuff. So
that's
that's
pretty great.
yeah, it was interesting. Like I don't know where I have two sisters, and I was very different from both of them. One of them would make fun of me all the time because like, she would play with Barbies growing up and I had this I remember specifically and I don't know what he was called, but I had this action figure and he was half flesh and then the other side showed all of his inner workings and you pressed a button and it showed the blood going up
Oh,
inside
I
his
had
body.
that figure. What?
Yeah, what was
Oh,
he called?
yeah, because you could hit it, and yeah, it would show the blood and the
Yeah,
circulatory system.
yeah.
I don't know. I'll find out. I'll
My
let you know.
sister was like, you are such a weirdo. But I mean, I
I'm
had
pretty
that.
sure it was in that GI Joe line.
I
Because
love
it was
that.
about like this big.
Yeah, yeah,
foot tall, and I
yeah.
think it went with those large GI Joe. I
Yeah.
definitely had that. Yeah, that was a
And I mean, I don't want to get into an argument, but I much preferred Matchbox cars to Hot Wheels. And I know that I'm in the minority, but I really liked Matchbox cars.
I like
So
Matchbox cars.
they were great. So yeah, I played with all of that stuff. And it's interesting because I'm happy because I know I'm not the only one. So it's really nice. I don't believe in gendered toys. Like you play with what you want to play with.
That's
So
right.
it's really cool
Whatever
for
makes you happy, go play.
whatever makes you happy. So I think it's cool, that everybody gets to go to these things and it's become much more inclusive.
Yeah,
Um,
agree. Do
Very
you
cool.
remember the Bullet Man figure?
No, what was
So
Bullet?
so this one he was in tights, and he had silver arms. So he had silver arms. And then he had this silver helmet that kind of looked like the top of a bullet. That's what his helmet was. He was called Bullet Man.
And what was his deal? Did
I
he
have no idea what his powers were or anything, but he was one of those G.I. Joe figures.
Well, now I got to look him up.
Yeah, Bullet Man. Yeah, you look him up because I looked him up the other day. It'll definitely come up for you.
My husband played with something called I got him one. I found one on eBay. Something called like Action Man or something. I was
I
like,
remember Action Man. Yeah.
I never knew what Action Man was. I mean, I had
Yeah.
I had the Evil Knievel bike with the thing with the
Oh,
pull.
I still got mine. I don't have the part that takes it lets it take off, but I've got Evil and the bike.
I think I have him in the bike too. I think I lost the zip chain thing and I think I
Nope.
lost the stands, but I have a bunch of stuff in storage. The
If
Star
you
Wars.
can believe it, not that you would want this figure, but I've still got an OJ Simpson doll.
Oh my
He
God.
comes with a weight bench.
Well, that's
He's
under the circumstances, that's benign.
Yeah,
So,
he's in. I mean, the doll came out back when he was playing pro football, so he's in a football uniform and he's got a weight bench. I
wow.
still got it though.
Wow. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I was like, I can't really get rid of it now.
No, I mean, wow, that's a doll with some weight added
I would
onto it.
think, yeah,
Who would have thought?
yeah.
Oh my God.
I
I immediately start thinking of every inappropriate action figure. I'm biting my tongue.
that has to be near the top, though, right?
I would think so. I mean, you don't want like a Cosby action figure,
Well, there
there's
probably was some of those.
I'm sure. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
there was a and I just watched a documentary on this and I can't remember his name, but there was a child there was like a it was their version of Captain Kangaroo in England and the guy turned out to be awful.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and it was like a whole big thing with him, but he was it like for generations of children. And I'm sure there were dolls and little pop
Isn't that
toys and all
awful?
that stuff.
Are
It's
you are
great.
you old enough to remember watching Captain Kangaroo?
I loved Captain Kangaroo.
Me too. Me
I
too.
loved it. Now, I was a Sesame Street kid, because when I was two, well, I would get up and dance all the time. Like the song would come on and I would get up and dance. And my mom noticed when I was two, I stopped dancing and I was just sort of watching. And my mom had incredible intuition. I was very, very close with her. And because of Sesame Street, my mother realized I was sick and took me to the hospital. And it turned out I had E. coli poisoning that had
Oh
progressed
my
to something
gosh.
hemolytic uremic syndrome, which just rolls off the tongue. It's a deadly illness. It's something like they talk about it in Fast Food Nation. It's terrible. It kills people. It's
Yeah.
terrible. And I was in the hospital for a long time. And my mom actually made and cut out gigantic Sesame Street characters and put them all over the walls
That's
in the.
good parenting.
Oh, my mom was the best.
So
My
she
mom.
just figured it out because you weren't dancing?
Yeah, because it wasn't because I was a gregarious kid at the time, and she was like, "You just were lethargic. You weren't
Yeah.
you." And I knew because you didn't get up and dance to the theme song of Sesame Street. Like that's damn good, Mom. That was damn good.
Well, when you know your kids, you know your kids.
Yeah. So
Or
I'm
in
always
my case, it's
grateful.
grandkids now. But I could tell you,
Yeah.
if they're
You
not
just
right, I know it.
yeah. So I'm always grateful to Sesame Street because I feel like, part of it was just that I had Big Bird and Snuffleupagus just looking out for me from the walls.
That's pretty great. I'm pretty great. It's so rare for me to talk to somebody that knows Captain Kangaroo.
I loved Captain that and Mr. Rogers and I was
Yeah.
and I liked Zoom
Oh,
and
I like Zoom.
Electric Company. But if you go back, okay, go back and watch. Did you watch Electric Company as a
Of
kid?
course, they had Spider-Man on it.
Yeah, but it didn't because it had okay. So I dated a comic book boy, and I told him because I was apeshit for Spider-Man. Spider-Man was it. I had every action figure, loved him. But when I was a child, I would watch Electric Company, and that Spidey scared me. And my boyfriend said, you know, it's interesting because I wonder if on some level they didn't have the license to use Spider-Man, so they just called him Spidey. So it wasn't actually
Oh,
Spider-Man. He's like, you might have been more sophisticated in your comic, in your
that's
comic.
funny. Yeah, I never thought of that. You're right, though. They did call him Spidey.
They called him Spidey. And so my boyfriend was like, maybe on some level you knew. I was like, I don't know. I just found him creepy as a kid on Electric Company and I
That's
loved him
funny.
everywhere else.
See, I'm
But
kind of surprised because they did a Electric Company Marvel Comics adaptation of Star Wars, and it had Spider-Man. It had him, and that Spidey was in it. And I would have thought that would have, because you're a Star Wars fan, that may have smoothed it over for you.
I'm probably, you know, at a certain age, I'm sure I would have dealt. But it was just the way he moved on Electric Company. I found him very creepy. I don't know why.
I kind of get it, because if I remember right, there wasn't any talking in those little. It was just
Oh,
like a little skit, and he didn't say. I could see where he could be a little
it was a little
creepy.
creepy. But I went back and watched the opening to Electric Company as an adult. And what's really funny is uh what's his name? Oh, help me out. Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. So he's in it, and he so clearly doesn't know the words to the opening of Electric Company, and he looks like a Muppet. If you watch the opening, he's just standing there in the background going,
Come on, Morgan.
it made us laugh so hard because it was like, oh, somebody didn't do his homework the night before he had to
He
shoot
was
this.
not ready.
No, he was too
Well, they
busy.
probably didn't prepare him that he needed to know the theme song.
That's probably true. You know what? Yeah, I'm on his side.
I think he may have learned it.
You
Yeah.
really should watch it. It was very funny. And then watching him be Easy Reader again was just funny too, because I hadn't seen it since I was a child. And you're like, oh my God, he's in a lot of my very favorite movies.
Did you watch Doctor Who?
I didn't, and I get so much crap about that from my friends. I have never seen an episode. Uh, one of the cons that I went to, I arbitrarily started spreading the rumor that I was dating one of them just to see how long it would take to spread because he was there and he was getting a lot of attention. I was like, no, we're totally together. And
Which one was there?
oh, that's see, I don't really know. Okay, so it's the one that was on The Crown.
Oh,
One of
oh,
them
Matt
played
Smith was on the
that's
Crown,
who.
I think. Yeah, yeah,
That's and he
yeah.
was very popular at this con. I mean, lines going around the block,
Of
obviously.
course.
So people would come up, I'd get one or two people, I'd be like, that's my boyfriend. And then Kathy and Jimmy was there, and we were like, we're doing a reboot of what were we saying? We're doing a reboot of Galaxy Quest. We're gonna do a reboot of Galaxy Quest together. We just wanted to see how long it would take the rumors to spread if
I
they would.
kind of love that.
Yeah, why not
Start your
have
own
fun?
rumors. Why
Yeah,
not?
exactly. Hey, sometime maybe they could come true, you know?
Have you got to do a Star Wars movie or show yet?
No, no, I would love to. I would really
How
love
has
to.
that not happened yet? There's a billion of them.
My husband got to go, he's a cameraman, and he got to go work on God, was it Mandalorian? He did one day on one set and it was pretty exciting. You know,
I
it was great.
bet.
But
You
no, I
did
have
a you did a Next Generation, I think.
yeah, that was one of my first jobs when I moved out here. And my sister, you know, I'd been doing this for so long. And I think that's when I was legitimized in my sister's eyes because she and her boyfriend watched a lot. They loved that show, that iteration in particular. And I got on that. And especially for her boyfriend, all of a sudden it was like, oh, she's really an actress. Like she,
Yeah.
okay.
She's legit now.
Yeah, like now I get it. It was a great job. That was really fun. Like it was one of my first times on a studio lot, and again, I think I was maybe 20, and it was at Paramount, and they gave me oatmeal for breakfast. I was like, thank you. And
That's
I had to go.
classy.
It was very classy and very good. Strawberry oatmeal, I remember.
Oh,
And I had to go to 4 fittings for my bathing suit because I was a cliff diver. And I had 4 friggin' fittings for what amounted to a black bathing suit. But I worked with Dr. Beverly Crusher, and she was phenomenal. And I just watched her on set. Like, that's what you do. I think a lot of people, certainly what I did, my first probably 20 jobs, you know, you model yourself after the number ones, number twos, and threes on the call
that's
sheet.
right.
So I was lucky enough that I got to work with her. A couple that stand out, like I did 2 episodes of Quantum Leap playing different characters, and
Right.
Scott Dracula. I recently got to thank him for this. Like it was so long ago and he didn't remember me, but I did an episode in particular where I was playing somebody who was going to take over Marilyn Monroe's life. I became her assistant. It was like an All About Eve thing. But I
Nice.
watched this man. So he was so kind. He was so kind to everybody. And he was there all day long. And I remember after 14 hours of work, he was like, I'm heading to the gym. I'll see you in the morning. But he was so professional and so just, I mean, just an absolute prince to every single person on that set. And I got to see him recently at a restaurant. And I walked up and I said, you taught me how to act on set. Like this is and Annie Potts was the same way. I did an episode of something called Love and War, and I remember specifically that I was playing the younger girlfriend of Jay Thomas, and she had sort of an on again off again thing with him, and she had an older boyfriend in the episode, and the whole thing was, how can you judge me for dating somebody who's 15 years younger than I am when you're
Right.
dating somebody 15 years older than you? So and there was a guest spot somebody was playing on the show and this person was very over the top and the
Right.
crew was laughing but like really over the top, and I remember Annie took me aside and she goes, they're in a different play than what we're doing, and what you need to do is not play for the audience, just keep doing what you're doing because what you're doing is right. And I got to thank her
How
because
nice.
you just don't like, I think she's a very kind person and Scott Bakula is a very kind person and they probably George Clooney, kind person. Like I don't think they realize the impression that they make on people. Maybe they do, but when you're that young, you're a sponge. And I
Right.
was very fortunate to work with people who Anthony Edwards was another one. I'll be perfectly honest. I played in that first episode with him, I played somebody with the burns on my thighs and he getting bandaged by him. And it was, it's a pretty titillating scene. And I'm young and I didn't hear somebody, but somebody on the crew made a comment about if the camera went down a little, the shot that it would be, because it would, my skirts hiked up and stuff.
Right.
Nancy Edwards stands up in front of everybody, and this is the pilot episode, and he stands up and he goes, that type of talk will not be permitted here. I will
Good for
not
him.
have that type of talk permitted
Yeah.
here. And at the time, I didn't even know what he was like. I hadn't heard. And later I was told, and you just go, wow, I'm so glad that these people exist, because then what I learned at 21 was, okay, when I'm number one, two, or three on the call sheet, and I see that happening to somebody else, I can stand up and
That's
go,
right. That's right.
happen.
You got to
So
be the protector then.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you do learn. So again, I don't have nightmare stories. I worked with some really great people when I was young and it left an impression. And then, you go on set, like I married a camera operator and one of the first things he said was the crew loves you. And I was like, I'm glad they love me. I'm just nice and I should be. Like
Right.
it's like some of what they love about me should just be expected from normal human
I
beings.
know that's a little concerning that
Yeah.
just being nice won them
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I just feel really grateful that I got to have the lessons that I did as early as I did.
I'm jumping back a little bit, but it just dawned on me. Was the Fantasy Island you were talking about earlier, was that the one with Malcolm McDowell?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
one.
That one didn't quite make it.
No, it didn't. But he was so much fun. That show was so much fun. They asked me to go do one, and so I went to Hawaii, and I was like, "All right," but and it was the same
I mean,
producer.
how do you say no to a trip to Hawaii for whatever
Well, you
show it is?
You can't. And it was bad timing when they asked me to go do one, but they were like, what you're going to do is play a guy trapped in a girl's body. The whole thing is you're a man, you want to see life as a woman. So, you got to be klutzy in the high heels. You got to be like not glamorous. And I was like, oh, can I do that? Let me tell you. Like, I already told you with the action figures and everything. I was like, this is awesome. Love the character. That'll be great. Hawaii, great. But I was supposed to be with my mom. And I said, timing bad. So if we can arrange it so my mom can come with me, then I'll do it. And they did, which was great
I bet
because
your mom wasn't too unhappy with that.
my mom wasn't. I'll tell you, I lost my mom in 2012. So these things where
Oh,
you look back and you
yeah.
go, I am so happy I got to do that for
Yeah.
her. So glad that I pushed for it because like the one thing I learned is that this business, it won't love you back. So like family has emphatically got to come
That's
first.
right.
So if it's a choice between a vacation with my mom, or going and doing a job, my mom's going to win. But if I can combine both of them in Hawaii,
Yeah.
then sure, like,
That's a
yeah,
win-win.
totally. So it was great.
Win-win-win because mom wins too.
It was great. So in Malcolm McDowell, I hadn't seen Clockwork Orange at that time because again, I'm like 25 then. So I hadn't seen Clockwork Orange, and we're sitting in the makeup trailer, and he's playing this music over and over again. And it's like tiddly tiddly tum music. And I go, what is up with this tiddly tiddly tum music? And someone went, it's the theme music to Clockwork Orange. I was like, I don't care. What is this music? And he heard me. And so he started playing Queen, and suddenly he's head bashing because it's like, it is, it's so you love me, die, and he's head bashing, and we're all just singing Bohemian Rhapsody together in this trailer. And it's just, again, one of those memories that you have. Like, he was so delightfully goofy and just a really fun guy. And then I came home and watched Clockwork Orange, and I was like, oh, holy
Oh,
crap.
yeah.
Oh, he's a big deal. I
Oh,
like
yeah. He's a big deal.
Clueless is the best way to go into any of these things. It's just fantastic.
Anybody that, can sing along with Bohemian Rhapsody, they're probably okay. That's
Yeah.
that's probably somebody you can trust.
He knew all the words. It was very impressive, but it was just one of those really funny Hollywood moments. And now I see him in movies, and it just makes me, it's all I ever think about is him bashing his head to Bohemian Rhapsody. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. See, part of the biggest reason that I'm not an actor is because I couldn't act. But one of the reasons is I'm such a fan. Like, I'd have difficulty on set not being a nuisance, I think.
You know what? You'd work around it. I've worked with some people. There was somebody on CSI that I'd been a big fan of as a child, and those are the ones that get you. Like, you can deal with, oh my God, I'm such a huge fan. This person's a really big deal, and like I admire their work. But if you can look at it from an adult's eyes, you're kind of like, okay, but I can
Right.
play ball with this person. I've been around for a while. I'll learn something. But the ones where you were a fan as a kid and they show
Yeah.
up, you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 8. And it is an interesting mind trick because you have to be like, you have to sort of find that calm version of
Yeah, you got to
yourself.
calm down.
Yeah. Because what you want to be is like, oh my God, I had your lunchbox. Oh my God. I had your action figure and your lunchbox, and I wrote you a fan letter. But yeah,
Yeah.
you managed to make it work. You find ways.
Who was
Hey,
when you started? Who was the one you ran into that
when
that you're like that you were kind of fanning out over before you learned how to handle it?
I literally ran into Clint Eastwood on the Sony lot. Like, I
Oh,
was late to an audition and ran
yeah,
into him.
that'd be
That's when
one.
I discovered that like the big stars, they glow. Like, there's something different about the way that they're built. Like, I recognized his glow before I recognized that it was him.
Really?
Like, it was just sort of, oh my God. That was one, but I had to read for Penny Marshall for something when
Oh,
I was really young, and that was stressful because she was a big deal,
yeah.
and you can't forget that's Penny Marshall with that voice, and she's giving you directions, and you're like, oh my God, because to me she was Laverne. I mean, I'm a kid, and so it was like Laverne is telling me what to do. So it was more like stuff like that than the actors. But then later, well, I got to meet Harrison Ford. I didn't work with him,
Oh,
but
yeah. That would do it for me.
well, I mean, like, he's been the crush of all crushes forever. And it was kind of great because my husband was winning an award for camera operating, and
Oh,
they were going to honor Harrison Ford the same year with something else. Like, there's a thing for actors who are, just know their
yeah.
technical craft very well. And so he was winning it. So I knew he was going to be there, but I thought, okay, so he's going to be there, but like, he's going to win, and then they're going to sort of spirit him away and all that. My husband asked me to write a speech to present the award to him because that's how they do it. Like, somebody comes out and sort of encapsulates the career for 5 minutes. So I wrote a speech about my husband. Hold on, so I don't cough. So I think, okay, so I'm going to do the speech, and I helped David write his speech so that they kind of worked together and
Yeah.
everything. And I got to give him this award. So what I didn't know was Harrison Ford went up right before I had to get up. And I was like, no, wait a second. He got up, and then he went right back to his seat and he sat down. I was like, oh, oh, okay. So I get on stage and I'm like, no one told me that I was going to have to follow Harrison Ford on stage. Nevertheless, she persisted. And
Right.
I then did my speech. And then I had a friend sitting at Harrison Ford's table, and she came up to me afterwards and she goes, you should know that while you were doing that speech, he asked who you were because he really liked the speech that you'd written. So later, I'm like, all right, that's all I need to know is that Han Solo even
That's
liked the
right.
now I'm so excited. So later they come up and they go, he's in the bar upstairs. You know, he'd like to meet you and your husband and I was like, oh my God. So I go upstairs. He
Wow.
comes up to me and he goes, I really liked that speech. And I went, thank you. And he goes, I mean, I don't know if anybody would ever write a speech like that about me. And like the speech you wrote about your husband. And I go, do you deserve to have a speech like that written for you? And he goes, maybe not. And then he looks at my husband and he goes, and you, screw you for raising the bar. And it was just this. And then my husband's mom was there and he goes, you're not blameless. And like it was this wonderful moment. And I just every time I pass where that
Amazing.
happened, I just point to the hotel and I look at David and I go, that's where my boyfriend was. Like that's where I met my boyfriend. And you know, it's a magic Hollywood moment. And the best thing to me was like I got to meet him because he liked something that I did. Like it was like he liked the speech, and that was just
Right.
really, really cool. Really
Oh,
cool.
that's amazing.
Yeah. I'm not gonna
That's all
pretend
I need. I'd be good after that.
I was good. I was like, that's the big one. That's
That's one of
somebody.
those, when you're having a bad day, you just bring that one up.
You know, all my husband has to do is look at me and go, "Who's she?" And like with Harrison Ford's voice, and I turn into that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I don't
How could
pretend
you
I'm.
not?
Oh yeah, I mean that's like he's an icon. That's not just somebody. That's like
Oh yeah, he'd be on my short list of people I'd like to meet
yeah.
at
And it
some
was
point.
and it was great. Like it was also the because how awful if you meet the person and they're an ass, you know? But he was so funny and everything. It was everything I could have wanted in a Harrison Ford encounter. It was fantastic.
I want this encounter. That's amazing.
It was great. It was,
So I know we got to wrap up, but I wanted to mention that I remember your show with all the Lawrences, like
oh
all of
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't even realize there was that many of them until I watched that show, and I was like, "There's so many of them."
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And now they're having kids, so like you know they're more. It's
Yeah, I
happening.
know. I
It's
know.
happening.
He
Yeah, that was
was
super.
well, that whole family. They were so big back in the '90s. I mean, just all of them.
Yeah, they were. It was interesting because I wasn't originally in that pilot. I got added on because I'd done Pigsty, which was originally
Mhm.
for NBC and got shoved over to UPN, but I played a super, and that was like it was really cool because, you know, I was a Facts of Life fan growing up and I
Mhm.
always related to Joe. Like I was always like Joe from Facts of Life is the coolest. Well, then I got to play a superintendent in Pigsty. I was like, oh my God, I'm like 90s Joe. Like I get to be 90s Joe.
'90s
And
Joe.
then because of that show, it got canceled and NBC was like, we lost the woman that was going to play my role, got another pilot in first position. So they asked if I wanted to come and be on Brotherly Love. And I was like, well, what's the role? They're like, mechanic, you wear the overalls and I was like, I'm in. So it was really serendipitous that I got to do it. It was just really good timing that I got to come in as sort of a swing, and then it went for 2 years.
Because it was that was after Blossom, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was
Like
after.
he
Oh
was
yeah.
like Joey was about that's about as big as he's been. I think he
Oh
was
my
so
God.
big.
We would do the live shows, and that's when I learned that they could be like a rock, like it was like a rock concert because
Yeah.
you come out, they introduce your character, you come out and you'd hear like all the girls going, Joey, they're screaming from the audience, and Matt and Andy, and they're screaming. And then like invariably I would have my character's name was Lou, and there'd be like one lone guy in the audience who would go, Lou. Like I would have one fan, Lou. And I was like, all right, there he is. So it
That's
was
my guy.
yeah, and then Joey and I would kiss on the show, and you'd hear like half of them were like, ooh, and half of them wanted to kill me for kissing their boyfriend, you know, like that was yeah, I'd never seen anything like that. And then later when I worked on Two and a Half Men, I saw that with Charlie, like on a
Yeah.
different wasn't like the teeny bopper thing, but people went just
No,
ape.
cause same when he was on that show, monster. He's just huge.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things like you just honestly, you just train yourself to be like, I am here to do a job. I'm just going to do my job. I'm going to act with this person.
You
And
can
you
freak
like,
out later.
yeah, well, the rest of the circus, you just get, you realize it's just that, you know, it's a
Yeah.
circus. There, you got to concentrate on your job and then go home. But yeah, that's what Brotherly Love taught me. It was like, oh, this is what it's like to work with the television version of rock stars. I mean, I would imagine every guest star on Friends dealt with that times,
Oh,
you
I'm
know,
sure.
had to be crazy.
Well, they had Friends in the ER crossed over one time.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I always like to watch those and well, Clooney done so many sitcoms, so he was great. But like I thought it was really interesting to watch big stars come on Friends and see how they did because sitcoms are such a weird, like they're a weird form. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
very different. It just the writing and then the multicam and then in front of the audience. And it was really interesting to watch these big stars. I mean, they're always good, but some of them, like I remember, well, she also had such a past with sitcoms, but I remember like Christina Applegate went on to play
Mhm.
Rachel's sister. And she, as far as I'm concerned, she crushed it more than any guest star on that show. Like she was
Really
unbelievable
good. Yeah.
good, so good. And it was just interesting to see who thrives at that form because it is just so different than being on a movie set.
Well,
It's
and
weird.
back then you didn't have the crossover. So it was a big deal if you had the big movie stars coming on a TV show.
Yeah, I know. And now it's all like I can't even count how many TV series Nicole Kidman's done. Like it's all just melded
I
into one.
know, and they're all good.
I know. I know, which is actually it's great. It's
I
really great.
see her in something, I'm like, well, there's one we're watching.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think she picks a bad one.
It's fantastic. We're obsessed with Bad Sisters right now. It just came back. So that's
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because yeah, second season. I haven't watched that one yet.
oh,
It's
it's
worth my time though?
it's so it's definitely and have you watched Slow Horses? Because Slow
I
Horses is
love slow horses.
I'm so mad that we're finished. Like we're finished for right now,
Yeah.
and I'm mad because I want more. That's one of
Yeah,
the
it's
best
oh,
thing.
I love slow horses. Yeah. I've got this theory that Apple has yet to make a bad show.
I think you're right.
Every show I've watched on there, I've loved. Yeah, I just finished the Palm Royale.
I haven't seen that yet.
That one's really good. That was really Carol Burnett's in it.
Well, that's pretty huge. I haven't. I thought it was really funny because with Slow Horses, Apple doesn't, to my knowledge, do a lot of ads. So
No,
the first 2 years of Slow Horses, I was like, David, honey, are they making this show for us? Because I think we're the only people watching this show.
me. I was
And
watching it.
And Mick Jagger is doing the opening theme song. You're like, this should be huge. I don't
No.
understand, but it is now.
Oh yeah, yeah. It just took it a little while. It was one of those that back in the day probably wouldn't have got the audience, and they'd have got rid of it.
You're absolutely right. You're right. And I think it's one of the best shows on TV. So see, we could solve this.
I know.
I'm telling
We'll
you.
make some calls.
Yeah, we should start our own network is what we should do. We know what the people want.
I'm gonna go home and tell my wife that me and Liz we decided we're starting a network.
I mean, there's really no way around it. It's been coming for years. I
See,
think I
then
think
then we have to come up with shows.
that's okay. I can do that.
We could
That's okay.
just go through like all of the shows that you were on that didn't get the chance. We'll just remake them.
We'll just reboot all of them.
Yeah, reboot all
Oh,
of them.
we'll have like a Push Nevada, Maximum Bob, The Tick.
All the weird ones.
I have plenty. Yeah. That's hysterical.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
cool.
think I'm in.
Done. Hey, you know what? Happy Thanksgiving to both of us because now we just have a whole new career. Like right after the holidays, we're gonna hit the ground running.
See, my Thanksgiving's already made. I'll tell you why, and it's a stupid reason, but yeah, I think you'll get it. I thought ahead this year, and I found gluten-free pie crust
Oh, that's great.
and gluten-free stuffing.
That's
But
great.
every year, I wait until the weekend before Thanksgiving before I go do all the shopping. Thank God my wife does the cooking, but I'll do the shopping, and they're always sold out of that. Always. So then
Good,
it's a scramble trying to find something.
good, good,
But this
good.
year, I've got it, so I'm gonna get my pie.
Oh, I think that's great. I think that's great.
So it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be a good
can't,
Thanksgiving.
I'm with you on the gluten. I can't do the gluten either. I'm not allergic, but it isn't pretty. It's just not, it doesn't make
Yeah,
me
yeah.
feel. So
No, it
we
makes you feel terrible.
yeah, really. We went to and we went to Italy for our 20th wedding anniversary. And I was amazed because I thought, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to like there's what am I gonna and there's everything. I could eat everything. They had so much stuff. Like they totally cater to the difficult ones. And I thought this
That's
is
me.
great. Yeah, I know. Hit me. And because I got the vegan thing too. So it was like I thought it was going to be problematic and it was wonderful. It was perfect.
Yeah, vegan's a tough one because it's so strict.
It is strict. It's
Yeah.
definitely strict. I've been this way for 6 or 7 years because I'm a big time
Awesome.
runner, an athlete. Like I've run some marathons and
I'm a
everything.
runner. I'm jealous that you've got to the marathon phase.
What? Honestly, everybody said you're gonna get hooked, you're gonna want to do them all the time. No, I don't. And it's not for lack of, like, I work out every day of my life. It's not for lack of motivation.
Yeah.
I don't like doing a 20-mile run, just to, like, the training takes so much time.
Yeah.
And the actual marathon, like, I ran New York, and I grew up in New York. I love New York. So it was phenomenal from that point of view. But personally, by the time I was done with 26.2 miles, and I made my husband do it with me because I'm terrible, we looked at each other. We were like, that's enough. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need a half marathon if you want
You
to
just
challenge.
need to be able to say you've done it.
Totally. I don't need to do. I'm done. I'm all good. I think a half marathon, if you want to challenge yourself, is a great distance. I think the marathon, and there's some people who've done like 60 of them, and good for them, but it wasn't, I didn't get bitten.
Yeah. Yeah. That's too far for me. And I like, I run, but I have to be distracted. I hate to run. So most of my running's on a treadmill because then I can watch something, and
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
run for an hour or something straight, no problem. I just have to mentally be able to handle it, which if I'm just running, I struggle with that.
Well, the other thing for me is that, like, running to me is very mental. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's it's a very happy place and very calming to me. And so to run a marathon, you're kind of like, okay, then I have to reconcile with the fact that I have to take a break from it afterwards for a while to let my body recover. So, I kind of, or you can injure. I went to run a second one and I injured myself in training. I was
Oh,
like, oh my God, I'm so fast. I was so fast. I was so fast, and I fell and
oh,
I hurt myself. I mean, I fell and it's a miracle it didn't break. But if I showed you my hands in a picture, my right hand was, I'm not exaggerating, 4 times the size of what my hand should have
oh, that
looked.
sounds awful.
Oh, it looked like it belonged to a different human being. And I had hurt my right leg, and then I overcompensated with my left one. And so it just, creates all these little problems. And I was just like, I don't need to be doing this.
No, no. Yeah, we all go through that at some point in our lives. You have to balance is that worth,
Yeah.
the possibility that I may get hurt?
Yeah.
Because as you
Exactly.
get older, the recovery from getting hurt is so much longer. So
It's
you
a
really got
miracle.
to think about it.
Like, I am amazed I didn't break anything. I am amazed that, like, it really was miraculous that all I did was sort of tweak a couple of things, but it just made me go, I don't know how many times. And I run at the Hollywood Reservoir, and it's very bumpy, and there are roots growing under it. So I've fallen a couple times, like, to different
Yeah, yeah.
degrees. And a lot of people do. And so after you do enough of those falls, you start going, I don't know how many fourth or fifth chances I'm gonna get.
That's
So,
right.
like, maybe I don't need to be running quite that fast for that long, and maybe I need to go do, like, knock out about 5 miles and do it at a good pace so I can catch myself if
Yeah,
my foot is on
yeah.
a
So you
root.
don't hurt yourself.
Be a little
Where's
feel.
the reservoir at there? Because I
Um,
like if you're, I know where the sign is.
yeah,
Where is it compared to the sign?
it's kind of like there's a dog park that's sort of under the sign, and it's
Yeah.
very close to that dog park.
Okay,
It's just,
I know where the dog park's at. So
yeah,
okay.
it's like Hollywood is what they call it, but it's really the reservoir. It's got a beautiful dam, and it's exactly, trust me, now I know every inch. If you run around the whole thing, it's a 5K. If you run from the gate where I start to the gate before it goes into the dirt path and back again, that's 5 miles. I can tell you from doing so many times there, I'm like, when the concrete starts to dip, you're at 0.5 miles. I mean, it's like I'm like an F1
I
racer.
was
Like,
gonna
I
say
can,
you've been out there a little bit.
yeah, like, you get to know the topography, but apparently not well enough because I still fell on my ass. But
I had a actress friend that was training for the New York Marathon, and she talked me into kind of training for it. She's like, "You training for it? We'll run it together." I was like, "All right, I'll do it." So I was kind of gearing up for it. Well, then she ended up having an injury and not getting to do it, and I was like, "Yay!" I was
it's
kind of relieved because I was reluctantly training for that.
intense. Well, I did it mostly because I did a documentary about running, and I directed a documentary called The Human Race, and it was following runners over the age of 50 because I always wondered if I'd have to quit someday. Like,
Yeah,
my mom died. Running helped me. It was like my meditation,
yeah,
like I
it's
said.
therapeutic. Yeah,
Was therapeutic, and I needed it. And the first thing, I went to grief counseling, and my mom and I were very close. And the first thing the grief counselor asked me was, "Are you doing something physical?" I was like, "Am I? Let me tell you." And she kept talking about how that would be really helpful, and it
okay.
was. So I thought, well, what do I do when I'm 60, 70, 80? Can I keep running? And I started to find that there are people that do marathons and half marathons and 10Ks, like up to
Yeah.
90, 100 years old. So I did a whole documentary about them because I feel like our country is remarkably ageist compared to a lot of the rest of the world. And it's
Agree.
really cool to show people doing things that people don't expect from
I love
75.
that.
Yeah, it's, you know what? It's a good doc, and I'm saying this like I won't make like it's on Amazon. If you have an Amazon account, like watch it for free. I'm not asking for your bucks, but like it's a good documentary
Yeah, I'll
with
check it out.
and it's really it's motivating because you're watching like I have an 80-year-old Velma. She was doing a half marathon, and Catherine Switzer, who's the first woman to have been a bibbed entry in a marathon period in
Yeah.
Boston many years ago. If you've seen the picture of her being pushed out and she pushed her way back in, it's a famous picture.
I've
She's
seen that. Yep.
she's in it, and she was running New York City at age 70. And
Amazing.
like, you know, you see this and you start going, because I made it just because physical activity's done so much for me. I wanted people to see that you don't have to do a marathon. You can go walk around the block, but like movement is medicine, and it will be better for you if you can move, you should move. Whatever makes you happy, like whatever. And if you don't feel like moving that day, don't do it. Don't, you know, but
Yeah.
it's important to get out at like, you know, move it, use it, or you lose it, literally.
That's
So
right. That's right.
yeah. So yeah, you should check it out.
Now I'll
It's good.
check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, the human race.
All right. Well, the next time you put yourself through the the agony of the New York Marathon, just don't mention it to me. Tell me when you're done.
Yeah, okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I don't again, I think like, you know, maybe the half marathon, that'll do it for me. It's just that's a long way.
I kind of do the 5K is kind of that's the minimum, and then I'll
Yeah.
run up to an hour, and I'll try to hit 6.5, 7.5 miles, something like that for an hour.
Great. It's
That's
fantastic.
good enough for me. I'll do that 3 or 4 times a week. That's good.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I had to sort of like force myself to start doing other things. So like I'll do the spin bike or I'll do the elliptical or I'll, you know, or I'll
I had
jump rope.
trouble with that too because you get where you're kind of good at something, you don't want to switch.
Yeah, I read something I was reading a book and this a running coach gave it to me and she gave me so many that I don't remember which one it was, but there was a doctor talking about how you have to really realize what it is you're exercising for. And it's not just for, you know, blood pressure, everything. It's also, you want to be able, as you get to be 80 and 90, to still move and do things. So he's
Right.
like, hiking with a very heavy backpack is really important. And doing like zone 2 training is really important. And it was really getting into the nitty gritty of figuring out why 20 years from now you want to be in good shape, what it is you want to do, and sort of catering to that. And I found that really fascinating because it was like, oh,
I
that
like
is good.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's why I
yeah,
should.
and that's a good way to do it because yeah, if you're thinking 20 years down the road, I want to be able to do this, so I'm training now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's helpful. It definitely worked for me.
yeah.
So
I think the key is just moving. It doesn't matter how fast you go; you just have to move.
yeah, absolutely. And it also builds a reservoir. Like if you, it's so because you know, I genuinely enjoy it. And
Yeah,
I remember somebody said to me, somebody's like, you know, we're all gonna die. I was like, oh, really? No, I know. It's just there's a theory called compression of morbidity that one of the doctors I talked to for the documentary, he talks about, okay, let's say two people are gonna live to be 100, period.
yeah.
One person might start being really ill at 65 and have 35 kind of crappy years. One person, the other person, if they took care of themselves, and of course, there's so much that goes into it, environment and genes,
Sure.
I get that. But all things considered, if the person that has taken really good care of themselves will probably have an easier time of it at 70 and 80 and 90. So he's like, what it is in his POV is a compression of morbidity, a compression of the amount of time that you're having difficulty in with your body. So his goal was to get to 92 and maybe start declining a
That's
bit
right.
as
Get
continues to
to the
progress.
90s before you drop.
Yeah, and again, you know, obviously other things are at play, and I'm not pretending that they're not, but it's just why not give yourself a better shot?
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah. At least you have the potential.
yeah. And if something bad does happen, like, you know, they talk about runners who've had heart attacks or runners
Yeah.
who've experienced things like that, you do have a reservoir of health. Like it will benefit you in that you will recover more quickly, most likely, if you've taken care of yourself. Like people that take care of themselves get through surgeries more easily. So it's just it's sort of just putting money. A lot of runners in my doc, they talk about it putting money in their bank account, you know. They're just
I like
they're
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty
Well,
good.
it's a purpose, it starts to make it feel less like, why am I logging these hours on the
Right.
treadmill? Yeah, you start going, no, I'm investing in me 20 years from now, hopefully.
I have had time where I've been running and thought to myself, what am I doing?
Yeah, well, you know what though? At 75, you're hopefully going to turn around and be like, I'm so glad I did that.
So glad I did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's what I think. That's my 2 cents, but I could preach about that all day.
What I hear is that we're running a marathon. That's what I got out of this.
Which is why I've signed us both up for New York next
That's
year.
right. That's right. Get running. Liz, thank you so much for taking some time.
Sure.
I appreciate it. This has been the best. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm such a fan of yours. I love that you always seem to find the either the odd show or the odd character, and you're great at both. So it's just love it.
Thank
And we
you.
didn't talk about True Calling, but maybe next time we can bring that one up because I love that one.
That was just another one in the cavalcade of like, I think there was probably 6 jobs in a row where I worked with a man and then they became massively famous right after I worked with him. So I'm not saying it was me, but it was kind of me. Like I did a pilot with Hugh Laurie right before that, and then he was House.
I
I'm
mean,
saying,
if it keeps happening,
yeah,
evidence is there that you may be affecting that.
somebody is Midas, and I think it's me. I'm just, I think 2 is a coincidence, 6 is just strange. Like,
That's right. That's right.
yeah.
I think
So
you deserve to take the credit.
I think every up and coming actor should try to work with me
You should
because
probably call you up and let him know that, hey, you're
I did
welcome.
this. Yeah, exactly. You are welcome. I'll do that right after I get off with you, and then I'll make it a point. I'll get us in the marathon for next year too.
Okay. Yeah, just
Yeah,
let me know when we're running and I'll start training.
I will. Well, it's very nice to meet you.
It was so nice to meet you, and I hope we can do it again at some point. This has been the
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So a couple quick things before I let you go. Anything that you're working on that we can keep an eye out for?
I am, but I can't really talk about it. I sold a script, so
Oh,
I'm writing.
congrats!
Thanks. It's I'm working again with Maya Bialik's company. I love her. She's obviously fiercely intelligent, and it's something I'm really excited about. And we have it set up in a network. And I just turned in my draft to Mayim, and I think it's going to the network this weekend. So we're really excited about that. So hopefully, I will be shooting that next year because it's for a streamer, so it doesn't sound like they would shoot a pilot. They'd pick it up for 10
That's right.
episodes.
That's right. Ooh, yeah,
Pilot.
that's true. That's true.
So I'm really excited about that because being an executive producer and having my show out there, like that's the goal for me right now. Like the acting thing, my friend ran a Million Little Things. He's like, "You want to come do some spots on that?"
Yeah.
Sure, I'll come do some
You were
spots on
very
that.
good on that. Yeah.
Thanks. It was great. What a fun group. Like, and it's DJ Nash, who I've known for 20 years, runs it, and like he's just dear and a really good friend. And like, yeah, I'll go do it. What I want, I want to be running my own show. So hopefully by next year that'll be happening.
Oh yeah. Well, you have to come back if you get that one up and running. Maybe you can come back and tell us about it then.
Oh, I will definitely.
That would
Yeah,
be
you'll be
great.
able to shut me up about it. I'll be thrilled.
I had I got an email saying that Mayim was wanting to have me on her podcast as a
Oh,
guest.
really?
Yeah.
Go do it. Her podcast is
Well,
great.
well, yeah. So, but I got it, and then I was like, oh, I got so excited. But then I was like, because I work with her publicist quite a bit. So I was like, let me send them a note. So I sent them a note. It wasn't her. It was just it was a scam. It was a
To
scam.
what end? Like, what was it going to get
I'm
them?
assuming that they at some point would try to get something out of me.
Weird.
I'm guessing maybe if I'd said yes, they just sent me something where I have to click on a link and put in information. That's my guess. I don't know. But I was like,
That's
oh,
really screwed up. I'll tell her that happened. That's
yeah,
weird.
you tell her. And if she wants to make it up to me,
Yeah, seriously.
I'm
Her
right
podcast is
here.
good. I've been really impressed with it. Like, I think
Oh,
it's really,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. It was one of those, and it was my son's idea. And we just did it to do it together. We didn't think it would go anywhere. And here we are. We're almost to 900 episodes.
Was it like a pandemic thing?
We started it in January of 2019, but it
Oh,
took off in the pandemic because everybody was home.
yeah.
That's when we kind of took off because nobody said no. They
I
didn't
mean,
have anything to do.
it's crazy. It's been crazy. And now, even now, I think I and again, these are rare, but I had put myself on tape for something and they called me in and said, do you want to come into a live audition? Because this is a callback and we would really like to meet you. And it was like, I mean, and like it was an impressive list of people. So I was like, well, I should go do this. Yes.
Yeah.
It's my first time live in a room reading with and for people in 5
Oh my
years.
gosh.
Yeah, it's just not being done anymore. I mean, I've been
Were you
upset.
nervous when you went in?
You know what? It wasn't so I'm so wanting this other thing to happen with the writing that it takes a lot of the pressure off because it was
Yeah.
sort of like if I get this, it's going to complicate my life in really good ways. Obviously, I'd be really fortunate and it's great and I'd have to say yes, but like it would complicate it.
Right.
So I didn't I honestly I was just like I need to go do this for my agents. I need to go get back on the horse and do this because it's a big room and I should go do it to know that I still can. But
Yeah.
I wasn't it wasn't like, oh my God, I have to get this role.
Right, 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 right.
So, and
I
that's
was
good.
assuming kind of like not exactly like riding a bike, but similar. You know,
It was very similar.
yeah, you
Yeah.
remember the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and it actually really was. It was funny because once I did one take, you just sort of go, oh yeah, this is that
I
thing.
remember this.
Yeah. This is that thing where they're all clearly judging you and you try to tell yourself that they're not, and you're like, oh no, this is really fun. You know, fun game.
Where can we find you on social media?
I have quit Twitter, but I am on Blue Sky as a
Oh yeah,
Liz.
Mark Hamill says you should join up.
I've been enjoying it so far. I also am on Threads, and I think I'm Lizzie Vassey on Threads. My mom used to call me Lizzie, and I did the
Oh,
Threads thing like a year ago and just didn't follow through with it. And I was like, oh, I'm signed up, and I think I'm Lizzie Vassey. I'm on Facebook. I mean, I'm around. No big
now
nicknames.
you
Just
come right up when you put
yeah,
your name in
it's
there.
but
Yeah.
but Blue Sky I think is the easiest place to find me.
Yeah, I know that one. It kind of, to me, it came out of nowhere. I guess it's been out there a little while, but I hadn't heard of it. And then everybody's switching to it. I was like, all right, I'll try it out. Why not?
It was pretty funny too because on Twitter, like I hadn't heard of it either for a while, and people were trying to be all cool about it, and they didn't want to like tip the algorithm, so they were like, "Join me where the skies are blue." I'm like, "What kind of cult is this? What are people talking about?" I'll be where the skies are blue. I was like, "What? I don't understand. What is this thing?" But yeah, it's fine. It
Yeah,
works. It's serviceable.
I know. Isn't it weird that now we're getting new social media sites and they just keep popping up? I'm like, how
Yeah.
many do we need?
Well, that's the thing. Like I now there are certain people I'll talk to, I'll message them on Facebook or I can find them on Blue Sky or it's like or I can just give you my number. I
Yeah,
mean,
right. Yeah, we could just text.
yeah, I mean, it is really
We
funny.
probably should have just stuck with MySpace. That was the only one.
As the only one and been done
The
with
only
it.
one been done. I mean,
Yeah.
you got music with that one.
Yeah. No, it is crazy. There's so much and I can't like I keep thinking about quitting, but the Facebook one in particular, it's like, people there are people
I
I
know
want to keep
you kind of
following.
have to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
I took them off my phone though. So
Oh,
I
that's
don't,
smart. Yeah.
yeah, for a time saver because I just don't, I kind of want to see the world. Like
Yeah.
it's really distressing to me how much everybody stares at their phone all the time.
All the
And so,
time.
and I always feel like when I do it, they did that test with rats at one point where they would have a rat in a cage and there was a lever. And when the rat would push the lever, if food came out every time, the rat was like, okay, I'm cool. I know if I want food, I push the lever. If no food came out, the rat was fine. If food came out intermittently, the rat would go insane because it was like, I'm pushing it. It comes out sometimes. I don't know. So every time I check my phone for that little jolt, I feel like a rat. I feel like, oh God, what is it that I'm looking for? Like what I
I
don't need
wonder
to
if that'll work for me. If I could, if if I can make myself feel kind of like a rat, then maybe that would get me to
I
settle
don't want to
down
be a
some.
slave to that thing. So I still have all of it on my computer, but I took it off of my
No, I
phone
think
because
that's smart.
I don't need to be shopping for groceries and like reading Twitter at the same like I just don't need to do that. There's just I could look up and actually, like smile or something, you know?
Next time I'm in LA, I'm gonna call you so you can tell me how far I'm running around the reservoir.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You'll be like,
Started here. Where? How does that get me to my mile or to my 5K?
yeah, you'll be like, I just got to where they have those little porta pot things. Oh, okay, then you're 0.75.
That's right. I just need to know how far I am.
I gotcha. I gotcha. I know every single inch.
Oh, it's
Good
fun.
run though. You should do it.
Yeah. No, yeah. I've done Runyon Canyon, but you can't really run that one.
Yeah.
You just hike that one. But
No, the reservoir's flat. It's really great.
that's me.
It's flat. It's under the Hollywood sign. The views are beautiful. It's
All right.
great.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'll send you a picture when I do it.
Okay, good.
All
Okay, I
right,
believe you.
hold on 1 second. I had the best time on that interview. I probably could have kept her on there for a couple of hours. So apologies that we ran a little long, but it was so much fun. Liz Vassey. I'm such a fan of hers as an actress, but now I'm just a fan of her as a person. I think she's terrific. If you haven't caught her on both versions of The Tick, she's terrific on both of them. We hardly mentioned CSI. She was Wendy Sims for, I don't know, 80 episodes or something on CSI. Just absolutely a terrific role. Outstanding. She played one of the Furies on Dr. Horrible. Love that. True Calling. I'm a big Liza Dushku fan who now I think is giving up acting. She's a therapist now, I believe, but loved True Calling. She did appearances on Dharma and Greg, Dawson's Creek. We talked about Quantum Leap, Murphy Brown, if you can believe it. The Adventures of Captain Zoom in Outer Space. I should have asked her about that one. Married with Children, and Beverly Hills 90210, Jake and the Fat Man, the new Leave It to Beaver. She's been doing this for a little while, and then she played. I didn't mention it, but she played a student in the 90s Superboy. So she was, I'm guessing that, and that may have been late 80s, but that was probably one of her first roles as well. Hope you enjoyed that. Liz is awesome. Can't wait to talk with her again. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you for being here. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Please subscribe. We could really use the help. Our website's meistercon.com. You can find almost 900 episodes, audio and video versions there if we're doing anything in studio, if we're covering a convention, if we're going on location, anything we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. So thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody.